Okay, this is the Learning the Avidyne Atlas video series. This is lesson 3, using the VHF COM and NAV radio. The Avidyne Atlas actually comes in 2 separate flavors. There's the FMS only version, so it's just a GPS FMS. And then there's the FMS GPS with a VHF NAV COM capability built in. So we're going to focus on that one, which has the VHF COM and NAV radio built in, so we can talk about how to tune the radios and get the most out of your Atlas. Here you can see the display and controls relevant to the VHF COM and NAV portion of the Atlas system. We'll focus in on those. One of the cool features of the integrated NavCom is the Atlas will give you station ID readouts of the active and standby COM frequencies that make it easy to figure out who you're talking to before you push to talk. So you'll see the station ID below the frequency. You will see the TX enunciation if you're transmitting on the active frequency. You will see the RX indication when either the active or the standby frequency is receiving a voice transmission. It's important to note that the digital radio in the Atlas actually tunes the active and the standby and can receive on both simultaneously and independently. If wired appropriately to your audio panel, you can select the monitor function and monitor that standby frequency. To tune the COM radios, there are several different ways to do it. One way is to use the left concentric knobs. So the outer knob turns megahertz and the inner knob is your kilohertz. And then you use your flip-flop button, your frequency transfer button, to move the standby tune frequency up into the active. Another way to do it is by using the keypad. To bring up the keypad, just touch anywhere in the standby window. The keypad will appear on the screen, and you can either use the keypad or the numeric hard keyboard and type in the frequency. One of the cool features of the Atlas, you don't have to type in the leading 1. It's optional. And any trailing 0 you wouldn't have to add as well. So as an example, if you wanted to type in 118.2, you could simply type in 182 and enter, and it would fill in the remaining characters. So it's a nice way to provide a shortcut. And then you can flip-flop it into the active. You can also use frequency nomination capability of the Atlas. So by using the frequency line select key here, it will bring up a frequency nomination page, and it's context sensitive based on your location. So there's 3 separate tabs, and if you cycle through the frequency button, it'll cycle between each tab, or you can touch any of the tabs. But then you can either use the knob to scroll down through the list, highlight a frequency and push the knob to transfer it, or just reach up and touch any frequency and double click it, and it will move over into the standby window. The airport tab is going to have when you're sitting on the ground at your departure airport, it's going to have your origin frequencies at your local airport pretty much in the order that you need them. Once you depart that airport and are en route, you can go to the en route tab, and it will give you center frequencies and flight service and those sort of things. When you get within 40 miles of your destination airport, go back to the airport tab, and it will have all your arrival frequencies in the order you need them. So you rarely have to manually type in a frequency. You can simply go through the nomination list, and it's always going to have the frequencies that you need. There's also a recent tab, as you see here. The recent tab is going to give you a running list of your most recently tuned frequencies. So if you need to go back in case you manually mistuned, you can go back to a frequency previously tuned. You can also direct tune from the information tab. So if you're on the FMS info tab and you select the airport and there's a list of COM frequencies for that airport, you can scroll through the list, again using the knob, scroll and push the enter button to transfer, or just reach up and touch any one of the frequencies and double click it and it'll transfer into the standby window. So that's off the info tab. And also if you're doing a nearest search, if you push the nearest line select key, and you bring up the nearest airports page, again, you can scroll down through the list and highlight a frequency and push in on the knob and it will transfer over, or you can just reach up and double click on any frequency in the list and move it into the standby window. And that holds true for nearest airports or airports nearest your destination, or center frequencies or flight service. Any of those frequencies in your nearest search, you can transfer those over into the standby. For nav tuning, what's nice about the Atlas is it will auto-tune your nav and ILS frequencies for you if you have the flight plan loaded into the FMS. So based on your current flight plan, Atlas's geofill is going to accurately predict and load the most likely VOR frequencies along your route. If you're looking at a nearby VOR and you want to tune it, you're going to look up and notice that it's probably already tuned and in the active window. When you load an approach, whether it's a localizer or an ILS or even on a GPS approach, it's going to tune the nearby nav aids, and it'll self-identify and give you an actual readout if it's tuned and decoded the Morse code for that nav frequency. So you very rarely have to manually tune a nav frequency. But if you want to manually tune, there are several ways to do it, just like with the COM. You can simply push in on the left knob and move the cyan cursor down from the standby COM to the standby nav, and then start turning from kilohertz and megahertz with the knobs. Tune it like a standard radio. Or you can reach up and touch the standby nav window and a keyboard will pop up, and you can either use the touch keyboard or the dedicated numeric keypad and type in the frequencies. With the same rules as the COM, you don't need to use the leading 1 or the trailing zeros. It'll automatically fill those in. Then you can, again, flip-flop into the active. Just like with the COM, if you go to the Info tab for a given VOR waypoint, the associated frequency will be listed and you can transfer it in by either highlighting and entering with the knob or just double-clicking on the frequency. And as we mentioned with the nearest page, if you do a nearest search for VORs, you select VORs on the line select key, you can scroll through the list and push enter or double click on the frequency to move it across. So you've got a lot of options. It's easy to tune, very intuitive. The Atlas VHF Common Nav is very capable and powerful. It's fully integrated with your flight management system. So that's pretty much it for using the VHF Common Nav portion of your Atlas FMS. Next up, we'll move into basic GPS navigation.
If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to pilotsupport@avidyne.com. Have a great day and fly safe, everyone.